Awesome. We are live. Hi, everyone. We'll get started soon. Today, we're here with Gerda from Your Negotiations talking about all about negotiating. As we wait a couple of minutes for everyone to chime in and the chat, let us know where are you based out of and where are you at in your career. Are you early career, mid career, later career? And I'm just gonna double check on Design Buddy's side to make sure that we're live as well. This is streamed on our LinkedIn and our YouTube.
Nice. Hi.
Let's see, just making sure on my phone. So where is everyone based out of and where are all y'all in your careers? Cool. There's a bunch of people tuning in on LinkedIn right now. There's a slight delay for those of you just joining. Let us know where y'all are based out of and where you are in career. Sophia's early career over in VA. I don't even know where I'm in my career. I guess mid-career. I guess how you define career over in SF. So yeah, how about you, Gerda?
Yeah, I am, I guess, mid-career in a way, and I'm in SF as well.
Cool.
Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. Jacqueline. Early career, Austin, Texas. Amazing. Early career in Raleigh. Oh, cool. Hi, Sunny. Nice to see you here. We met in person in SF. I remember that. Cool. Let's get started on the questions. We have a lot of questions submitted from our audience. I also thought of some as well. So Gerda, before we get started, Design Buddies is a huge design community that I founded, and we're really excited to welcome Gerda today. Our goal is to help designers level up in their careers. So whether you are beginner career, mid-career, senior career, like wherever you are at your journey, looking for something new, we have a lot of events online like this one in person, including based in the SF, but we also have a lot of in-person events happening over the world, including our first conference this year happening on May 20th in SF and online. And we have content, design challenges, and more. So totally welcome to join us on Discord. And yeah, we're excited to welcome Gerda. So Gerda, we're excited to have you talk about negotiation. So we'd love for you to introduce yourself. What are you doing now and what is your background?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I applaud the design community for being interested in learning more about negotiations. So I am Gerta. I'm a negotiations expert. I was trained by world-class negotiators from MIT and Harvard Law School. And I'm the founder of yournegotiations.com. And I've helped hundreds of people over 10 years negotiate with recruiters, business leaders, investors, co-founders, vendors, customers, and more. And my career spans big tech. I've worked at LinkedIn and IBM, global biotech, startups. I'm 3 times founder and advisor, and also venture capital. I have a master's in logistics engineering from MIT and a degree in math from Wellesley College. But my passion is all about negotiations and utilizing behavioral sciences to inform a successful strategy.
Amazing. Very diverse background. And excited to hear from you about negotiation. I know it's a very hot topic, and I also encourage everyone to negotiate as well. It has brought me a lot, and I'm happy to bring Gerda on to talk about it with you. And also during this time, feel free, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. We'll highlight it. I took some that were submitted when y'all RSVP, but more comes up, comment them. And so let's start off. How do you define negotiation?
Yeah, there's a common misconception that negotiations are combative and it's a zero-sum game where there's a certain amount, especially in the job environment, there's a certain amount of money and it's like you versus them. I actually think of negotiations as a very collaborative process. I always prioritize the relationship, whether with the company, with the recruiter, the hiring manager, and trying to be very creative in finding win-win opportunities. So an example could be, maybe the company would love for you to start as soon as possible versus, and for you it's like, yeah, I can totally start early, but I would love a little bit more money. And that's a win-win opportunity. You don't care about when you start, you're happy to start early. They probably don't care about a couple thousand or tens of thousands, but they want someone to work on a project as soon as possible. So that type of creativity in problem solving is my angle at negotiations.
Yeah, it's all about working together towards a common goal and adding value to each other and not being afraid to
Yeah.
ask for more because you had to start early or you had to pick up extra responsibilities at your job and all about value exchange. I know a lot of people are very scared of negotiating, especially like early in the career. Like, what are some common blockers that prevent someone from negotiating?
Yeah, I think the misconceptions around negotiations are common blockers. So I will like, oh, it's combative. Like, I don't want to ruin the relationship with the company. I don't want them to rescind the offer. I don't want to come across as greedy. And again, if you look at negotiations instead of all that as more of a collaborative process, let's explore how we can both be better in this process and come out of it with more wins for each of us, then that can help people negotiate more. Another thing actually that might help people be more willing to negotiate is, especially in the job offer arena, is that most companies, they know people will negotiate. It's a common business practice. And so the initial offer is almost always lower than what they would have been willing to pay. So you actually, by not negotiating, you're for sure leaving money on the table. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
that will be a bit of a nice nudge for those who are hesitant.
Yeah, always negotiate. And if someone tells you not, don't listen to them. Also curious, like when it comes to negotiating, what are some common mistakes people make?
I think some things, some common mistakes are things like taking it personally. So especially in these times of layoffs, people are getting lower offers, both in terms of title and money, and there's a lot of ego and identity wrapped up in it. It makes sense, but it's market dynamics. No one is most likely, no one is actually wants you to not succeed or get a good offer. It's just that the market right now is paying less for what it was paying maybe 1 or 2 years ago. So taking it personally is a common mistake. Playing hard to get is also a common mistake. So people think they don't want to look too desperate to show that they are excited about the role. That's actually not a strategy I recommend. You actually want to show excitement about the role, the company, the hiring manager, the team, and how much you have to learn from everyone, and you get to learn from everyone. So that's another common mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yes, nothing personal. It's all a value exchange.
Yeah.
And I know that we talked about salary negotiation, but there's also like ton of other stuff like stocks, benefits. And so beyond if the salary doesn't work, what other things can people negotiate on when they get an offer?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the example, it could be a start date. So you can hold that almost as a concession point. So if you're not agreeing on maybe compensation like cash, you can maybe see if they would be interested in you starting earlier than the initial date, and then maybe they can give you a bit more money. In exchange, it could be actually many things. I negotiated my very first job. I negotiated time off, and this was a very small company in the US. So it could be, time off, benefits. One of the most interesting things I've seen people negotiate is being able to have lunch with the CEO of the company like once a year or something like that, depending on the size of the company. There's so much creativity that goes into it. Like if there's something you really want, might as well ask for it within
Yeah.
reason.
I'm curious, do you have any fun negotiation success stories or stories where you learned a lot from that you can share with us?
Let's see, fun. I guess what's more fun to me is seeing when people win very big, and we surprise. I surprise myself with my tactics and my clients as well. So one example is I had a client who uh, I'm trying to make sure I don't reveal personal information. So she was making 200K at 220K at Meta, and she was offered 200K at a new job. And she was like, "Hey, should I ask for 20K more just to see if they'll give me that?" And one of my principles that I teach is you want to ask open-ended questions just because you don't actually know their actual budget or internal pressures of the company. So maybe they will surprise you. And this company actually did surprise both of us. They came back with 240K, so even way more than their initial offer and more than what she was making at Meta. And that was a lot of fun for all of us to see.
That's amazing. Isn't it illegal, at least in some states, for people to ask for your current salary?
Yes, it is. They weren't asking. This was my client asking me, should I ask the company whether they can match my last job, which was 20K more. And you, as an applicant, you can offer whatever type of information you want. But many states in the US, they actually, it is illegal for companies to ask you how much you were making at your last job or your current job. So yeah, great catch. But this was just like her and I strategizing on this. And just to close the loop on that, you want to share as little as possible on your personal information, personal preferences, your ideal salary, or things like that. I think of negotiations a little bit as a card game. You can't win if you show your cards. You do want to be very collaborative and trying to be creative, as I mentioned earlier, on like problem solving around what's important to each other, but you don't actually want to lay your cards on the table.
Definitely agree on that. And yeah, share as little as possible and just keep and then fight and like don't feel bad if you're like feeling uncomfortable. It's like people are like recruiters like, so what's your range? And you'd be like, what is your range? And just like don't let that stop you. He's like, I used to feel
Exactly.
really uncomfortable when I moved past that.
Yeah, actually, I have a funny story about that. This has happened to me in my own life, not with clients, with three separate recruiters. We played this game of they wanted my number or range. I wouldn't say it, but of course, in a very nice professional way, like, you know, I don't have a number, what's your budget, things like that. And then after we would go around in circles for a while, this happened with three separate recruiters. They would start laughing because they could tell I knew how to play this game where you're not supposed to share your preferred salary or range. It's not beneficial to you. And I can say more to that actually. So one of the reasons, or the reason why you don't want to share your preferred salary or range, is because you could say a number that is lower than what they would have been willing to pay you, and now you left money on the table. Or you can say a number that's too high, and then now you have priced yourself out of the job. You know, it could be a turnoff for the company, or they might not move you forward. So that's why you don't want to give a number. And I know some people think of, okay, if I don't give a number, can I give a range? That feels like a middle ground, right? Actually, it's very interesting. This is like a fun math problem. If you give a range, you're actually giving the lowest number you're willing to take and to accept. And so giving a range is similar to giving a preferred number, because now you've said the minimum amount you're willing to accept, which again could be too low, and now you've left money on the table. It could be too high, and now you've priced yourself out.
Yeah, never tell a range. Ask them first. Which this leads to the question from Julija from LinkedIn. What do you say is your range when a job already has a range? Should you try to stay within or ask for a higher rate?
So I'm assuming, and by the way, hi Julija. So I'm assuming that what you mean is you're on the first call with the recruiter, and they're asking like, hey, does the salary range that has been posted on our job post, does that work for you? This is a very common scenario. What you want to say is something like, hey, I actually want to make sure this role is a mutually good fit, and we can discuss compensation later after the interviews. Hi, Julia. Okay, thanks, Julia. So basically you don't have to answer. This is actually one of the one of the core principles that I coach people on. You don't have to answer questions in a direct way. If they're like, do you like this range? You can say, I would love for us to explore if this is a good fit first, and then we can talk compensation. If they're like, oh, does that mean this is okay with you? You can say like, maybe I need to do a bit more research on my market value, and then I'll get back to you. Like things like that.
Yeah, don't give them an answer first, but do some research. I see another question. There's a question about researching that I saw submitted. Is like when you try to do research, like how would you prepare for negotiation? Would you look at like Glassdoor, any other resources you recommend? Is Glassdoor trustworthy? And how would you prepare for like data wise gathering the salary range based on like your level, your location, as well as like mentally prepare for that?
Yeah, I love this question because a lot of people, especially if they're high achievers, they want to go in and do all the research and like go on Reddit, go on Blind, Levels, Glassdoor, like, oh, I did all this work. The way I approach negotiations is, a company has its own internal pressures. Of course, there's a market rate for most jobs, right? Like there is a typical range of how much a PM in a set gets paid, for example. But the company has its own internal pressures and priorities. So maybe they want to hire someone as soon as possible because the team is burning out and they need more hands on deck, or they have a product launch that's coming soon and they need more headcount and things like that. So because we don't know how much their actual budget is, and they will likely not tell you. If they're good at negotiations, they shouldn't tell you. They tell you the range, not the budget. But because we don't know that, no matter what research you do, research alone will not help you get as much of the money that's on the table as possible. So that's one argument. The other one is Glassdoor, Reddit, Levels, all of these, Blind, the app. All of these are self-reported, so anyone can go in and say whatever they want. They also are not, so they're not very reliable. They're also like not necessarily statistically significant. Like people who are happy with their pay are not going in there and sharing their pay and things like that. So they're just not reliable. Companies themselves, they actually pay tens of thousands of dollars for platforms like salary.com or Carta for startups, for them to have this market data that is statistically significant and it's actually employer reported. So you as an applicant, it's extremely unlikely that you will find the right data. And even then, the market is shifting continuously. So what I actually recommend instead is focusing on more of these other strategies that, again, things like collaboration and gentle persistence, being creative on like what you can bring to the table versus what they might prefer. And I wouldn't waste time researching very thoroughly. You can just to get a general sense of where you could be. But if you do have to research, and I think you should towards the end of the negotiation, not in the beginning, the best way I recommend researching is talking to people who are at those roles. So let's say you're applying to Google for a designer role. You want to talk to other designers at Google, and I can share some script around that. And that's the best way for you to get the most accurate data on how much a designer at Google makes. And then if you can't, if it's a smaller company, then you go to designers at similar companies, so similar size, similar space, and level, and things like that. And of course, location. And so actually to expand on the phrasing on how you can do that, what I do is of course, if you have your own network, you can just you talk to your friends. But if you don't have your network, you can cold DM on LinkedIn people who are at these roles. And then you're like, hey, I'm applying to this role. I would love to chat more about what it's like working at this company. And on that call, you can say, hey, I'm actually doing some research on compensation. I'm asking other designers at Google how much they're making. I'm happy to share with you those findings. Would you be willing to share as well? I wouldn't share your name and anything like that. but I can just share the numbers with you and then your numbers with others. So that's one way. But as you can tell, it's a lot of work. I would just focus more on the, again, like the persistence, the professionalism, the creativity of problem solving rather than all this research.
Definitely resonate with that because sometimes like the company, it's like it's very time consuming and sometimes it might prevent you from like potentially asking for more. If you hear well, other people are getting paid and you want to get the paid the same thing, but
Exactly.
people get hired at different times. Like oftentimes when you get hired, it's like your salary is like kind of stuck there because it increases by percentage based on where you started over the years. So like that also impacts it as well. So like I also resonate with just kind of work together and like focus on the present instead of like using like stressing out about like all the data. That's something like I wish I heard early in my career. I remember like going like Glassdoor salary levels and try to like I don't know, just try to like gather all the data and stuff. And I'd also add like have a hype doc for yourself. Like whenever you accomplish something, write it down on an area and then like leverage the value that you would bring
Yeah.
that's relevant to the job and the company and use that as like a I don't know like a reason to maybe
Yes.
like offer more than the range that they might provide.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I actually recommend this to my students and clients as well. I recommend, hey, make a list of 5 reasons why you're a great fit for this role. And as you're asking for more money after you get the initial offer, with your first ask, you say, hey, would love to, if there's any chance you can throw in a bit more money here. Here are 3 reasons why I would be a great fit for the role. And then when you ask the second time, you can say, would love, is there any more room in the budget? Here are 2 to 3 other reasons why I would be a great fit for the role. Yeah, that's a great tip.
For sure. I know we talked a lot about negotiating like initial salary, but let's just say someone's happy at their company, don't want to leave. What would be your advice on helping like how people would navigate negotiation after they got a job? Like whether that be like projects they want to work on, promotions, and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I help people closely on raises and promotions. You need to keep in mind, well, first, my initial tip would be at least once a year, you want to maybe uh, shop around and see what your market value is because the market is always changing and you could be paid a lot more somewhere else. That doesn't mean you have to jump ship every year, but it's just for you to see what the market is doing. And that's also a way for you to use that in your negotiation for a raise or promotion. So you can say something like, I'm really enjoying my work here and learning from the team and all that. I do see, however, like, recruiters are approaching me or there's all these jobs out there that are paying significantly more. Is there any chance we can do like a comp adjustment or, like, a raise and things like that? So the reason I say that is because when you're already at a job, you don't have much leverage to get what you want other than leaving. But that's always a risk. So you might want to bring in external data points a little bit more there. The other thing I was going to say is, especially for a raise or promotion, it's a very long journey. Like you want to manage it as a project. It's not one conversation around the time when you get performance reviews and things like that. It's actually something you want to think way before you have performance reviews, and you want to start talking to your manager early on, and you know sharing what your ambitions are. Like, hey, I want to get promoted or I want to get a raise. What would it take to get that within the next 6 to 12 months? So you want to stay on top of it almost at every conversation with your manager, because you're the one whose career it is. And so you're the owner of this project, which is your career.
hmm What's the best way to navigate the question, why do you want to raise? Because I remember early on in my career, I think the worst thing to say, I don't know, I made a mistake by saying like, oh, I like wanted more money and stuff. But like, how would you go about navigating that question? Because like, if you want to raise, you need to answer why you want to raise. Is it like to expand your impact? And like, we'd love to hear your advice on how people here can help navigate that question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would think more about, I guess, the market dynamics. everyone wants a raise. I don't think they will ask why you want a raise. It's more about you presenting your, I guess, your arguments yourself. So it could be something like, again, like I did some research and it looks like this role at similar company, similar location is paying significantly more. I was wondering if we can have an adjustment. I really love it here. Like make sure you're not threatening them. You're sharing that you really love it there. So you can use that type of argument, or I don't think you will be asked why do you want to raise. It will be
Oh,
more
I was
like
asked
why
that.
do you deserve. You were asked, okay, that's great. I think it's more along the lines of like why do you deserve a raise? So were you asked why do you deserve it or why do you want it?
It was like, why do you want to get promoted? Well, I think so. Like, so for some
Promoted
context,
is different. Yes,
I
promoted is
am
different.
like
Yeah.
3-4 years in my career, and this is like my second or third year working. And back then, my goal was to climb the corporate ladder, and no longer is. But like, I got promoted to like a mid-level designer within a year. I was like, oh, maybe I can get promoted to senior, which is like usually you would have like much more experience. But yeah, that was the context behind it.
Yeah, of course. I want to clarify that you can get a raise without a promotion and a promotion without a raise. So promotion I think of as a title adjustment. Like you can get a higher title or level. So if you get asked like why do you want a higher title? Now that's a different game versus raise, which is more money. A higher title is what you said. That's a great argument, which is I want to move fast in my career. I'm ambitious. I want to expand my impact in the company or with our customers or users. You can use those types of arguments.
Mm-hmm. For sure, or just like widen your impact in business terms. I know we talked a lot about like working in-house, but also we have a lot of freelance designers as well. So would love to hear your thoughts on like when, for example, like a freelance project becomes bigger in scope. How do you like navigate negotiating for new pricing?
Again, I think it's good to make it a very collaborative and nice and professional and cordial process. And you can bring it up as like, hey, our scope has expanded or will expand. As the designer, I typically, maybe you're working longer hours or maybe you have more of a workload and you want to say like I charge this much per hour, or like the market data shows that designers who work this type of project are paid this much. It is a little bit specific to your situation, but one thing I do want to mention upfront is you want to be very clear about your priorities before you have any of these conversations. So maybe your priority is to turn this into a full-time offer. Maybe your priority is more cash, or maybe you want to get equity from this, let's say, startup. Sorry, the sun is in my eyes. Let me adjust a little bit. So you want to be very clear on your priorities. Before you even have the negotiation conversation, so that you go in prepared, because you might go in all in on wanting more cash, but then later you realize actually I want this to turn into a full-time offer that's even higher priority for me. And if that's the case, you actually approach the negotiation in a very different strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of case by case basis, but I think it just sums up to help it collaborating, working together, making sure it's all equal value. As we wrap up, is there any other thoughts about negotiation or advice that you like to share and haven't shared yet today?
Let's see. I guess the biggest takeaway is definitely negotiate. You are also giving the other party a chance to share their priorities with you. If it's monetary and if you're getting an offer, you're most likely, almost guaranteed, you're leaving money on the table if you don't negotiate, because the initial offer is coming in lower than what they're willing to pay. Keep it very professional, very cordial. Show a lot of excitement about working at the company, with the team, with the hiring manager. And then be a little creative with the problem solving around it. Like if you're not where you want to be, see if you can give them something in exchange for them to pay you more and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Do you want to share a bit about your course? We actually are offering like a $50 discount as
Yeah.
well, which I'll send y'all an email and post about it in our Discord later as well. But yeah, tell us about your course.
Yeah, my course is, if you just go to yournegotiations.com, there's a lot of information there. One of the, yeah, it's self-paced, so you can take your time. There's readings, there's videos, there's exercises and worksheets. There's also a half an hour call with me if there is a very specific situation that people might want to discuss individually with me. And I share all my strategies there. I'm not holding back everything that I've learned from world class experts, from behavioral science, and my actual experience as well.
Awesome, cool. Thanks so much for being on and Rico for your time and all the tips you shared with about negotiation. And we hope everyone watching on like LinkedIn and YouTube and everywhere else, if next time you get a job offer, just think about negotiating or just like mentally prepare yourself to negotiate because you're leaving so much money on the table and we want everyone to like get paid and live their best lives.
Yeah, thanks, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Cool.